Hello and welcome back to Daily Practice with me, Nikhil, the podcast where we navigate the practices that can help us have an uplifting life. Today, we'll be tackling the holy grail of modern existence, how to live a stress free life. And if you are having access to the internet, you would have seen the many millions of web pages, talks like these on how to live a stress-free life. And now, I know what you're thinking. You're bracing yourself for the 5 horsemen of cliche advice. Just meditate for 20 minutes, get better sleep, eat less sugar, journal your feelings, and of course, exercise more. And look, those advice or those ideas are fine. It's the nutritional guidance of mental health, but it's also boring. If that were easy, none of us would be here. We'd all be floating, enlightened, and doing perfect sun salutations. So we are going deeper today. We're talking about the unconventional, tactical, and slightly cynical hacks for working with stress, the structural stress that this modern society bakes into our lives. We are going to give you at least 6 distinct, actionable takeaways that have nothing to do with deep breathing. So this is going to be a substantial full-length episode. So buckle up, maybe grab a cup of coffee, decaf, if you're trying to stay stress-free. And let's decode the human understanding. So firstly, what is the philosophy of stress? How to stop hurting yourself. And the number one idea which I want to share is the second arrow. Stress is a narrative, not an event. Let's start with this piece of ancient Buddhist philosophy that has been talked about in many books. It's called the second arrow. The story goes like this. When you're stuck or struck by first arrow, an arrow is the pain of the event itself. You spill the coffee, you're on your shirt, your boss sends a sharp email, you lose a client. That's the first arrow. It hurts. It's inevitable. It's out of your control. But the second arrow is the suffering you inflict upon yourself after the event. It's the mental narration. Oh, I am such a dash, fill in the blanks for filling this. Why am I so clumsy? This is always happening to me. My boss hates me. I'm going to lose my job. I'm a failure. All these additional things we add on ourselves. And it's the story we tell about our pain. And research backs this up. A study from Yale University found that people who habitually worry about worrying, they get stressed about their stress, have worse long-term health outcomes than those who simply accept the initial stressor. So you're basically doubling the dose of cortisol. So the first aspect, your goal for a stress-free life is not to avoid the first arrow. That's impossible. And your goal is to dodge the second arrow. When a minor catastrophe happens, just name event and stop the narration. Coffee spilled, that's it. That's a them problem for today. You have to train yourself to treat your initial pain like sometimes we do physical injury. Acknowledge it, clean the wound, stop dwelling on how unfair it is that gravity exists. Now, the second principle we want to talk about is the low bar principle. Embrace the C- life. The next technique flies in the face of all the hustle culture advice you see online. I call it the power of low expectations, or the C minus principle. Stress often comes from the distance between our current reality and an unattainable ideal. We don't just want to clean the house, we want the house to look like an architectural digest cover shoot. We don't just want to write an email, we want it to be a masterclass in professional communication. We need to adopt the principle of this minimum viable effort. A lot of students do this, but I think when we were students, we used to do this, and then when we became adults, we stopped doing this for some reason. I used to get terrible writer's block. I'd sit down thinking I have to write an amazing, insightful podcast script. Total paralysis. The stress of the quality bar was too high. Then I read something from someone who said, my goal for the day is to write one bad sentence. Just one, that's it. You know what? When your goal is to write a single sentence, a terrible sentence, the stress vanishes. You usually end up writing few more, 10 or 20 sentences. And they aren't even bad. This being one of them. So this is related to this concept of task initiation. The hardest part of any activity is starting. By setting the bar incredibly low, a C minus level, you eliminate the performance anxiety that triggers the stress. Don't set a goal to clean the entire kitchen. Set a goal to wipe down one counter. Don't set a goal to pay all the bills and reorganize my finances. Set a goal to open the drawer, open the folder. So this isn't about mediocrity, by the way. It's about conversing with your psychological well-being and conserving your energy for the 2 or 3 things in life that truly require an A+ effort, like your job, your nurturing relationships, and let everything else be reliable, stress-free, C- in the progress report. So reducing chronic stress, becoming a strategic underachiever is in non-critical areas. Set the bar so low you have to limbo to get under it, not jump over it. Now let's talk about the stress that comes from the outside world, specifically the stress of comparison and stress of obligation. I'd like to talk about in the third principle, the social media safari. Now, observe, don't compare. Social media is a nuclear reactor of comparison stress. You know the feeling, scrolling through perfect likes, perfect trips, perfect side hustles, and suddenly your own perfectly fine life feels utterly inadequate. This is where we need a tactical mental shift. So stop treating social media like a personal status report and start treating it like a social media safari. When you watch a nature documentary, you don't feel bad that you are not a gazelle running on the savannah. You're simply observing the behavior of a foreign species in its natural habitat. So do the same thing with the perfectly curated lives online. They are not humans. They are digital avatars performing rituals in their own digital habitats. When you see someone on a yacht, your thought shouldn't be, oh, why am I not on a yacht? It should be, look at that specimen. Note the perfect filter usage and the carefully staged champagne flute, an excellent example of the species Homo performance. So this creates distance. It turns anxiety into anthropological curiosity. It reminds you that the perfect image is a highlight reel, edited, pruned precisely to generate your envy. And your life is the unedited director's cut. That's okay. And that's how we should be. The fourth principle about a stress-free life is the budgeting energy principle. The art of the elegant no. One of the biggest non-obvious stress factors is obligation debt. You know, you've been there. We constantly take on commitments out of guilt, fear of conflict, or simply because we haven't trained ourselves to say no gracefully. We need to start treating our time and energy like some of our financial budgets. You wouldn't hand out $100, £100 just because someone asked nicely. Maybe you do, but just because somebody asked, you don't have to give it. So why do you hand out 2 hours of your precious time? And Warren Buffett, famous investor, taught his pilot, clearly amazing, a technique called the 25-5 rule. He asked his pilot to write down 25 career goals, and you can do this, by the way. And he asked him to circle 5, the most important 5. And then he told him, the bottom 20 are now your avoid at all costs list. So they are the things you must actively avoid because they will distract you from your top 5. And you can do this with anything. You can do this in your relationships. You can do this in your exercises. You can use this in your financial planning. You can use this for business. You can use this for anything. It's a wonderful way to conserve your energy, budget your energy. And that's the action. So do your 25-5. Now, how do we decline requests without invoking guilt? Let's say the problem, can you help me this weekend? The clunky, no guilt-inducing answer would be, oh, I'm sorry, I think I have to do laundry maybe. But the elegant no, the boundary-setting answer would be, oh, that sounds like a tough job, but I'm completely maxed out on my social commitments for the month. I can't give you the energy you deserve, so I had to pass. But let me send you the number of a great moving service. It's firm, it's complimentary, it offers solution, and it closes the door without apology. And you are protecting your peace like a CEO protects, financial investments. So this practice is one of the most effective long-term stress relievers. Now we dedicate some time to eliminate the constant, irritating, low-grade stress of logistical friction. The mighty tiny daily paper cuts that accumulate in the form of chronic headache. And in that, the first one or the fifth one, the uniform principle, eliminating decision fatigue. Remember how we talked about reserving your A+ effort? Well, the brain has finite amount of energy for decision making every day. If you spend the energy deciding on what to wear, for example, what to eat, or what to play, what playlist to listen to, you are going to have none left when something important happens. This is decision fatigue. You might have seen this happening to you, happening to others. You know the famous example everyone throws around about Steve Jobs and his shirts, turtleneck and jeans, etc. Mark Zuckerberg, who's the guy who invented Facebook, grey t-shirt, historical figures like Einstein, who had 5 of the same coat, Barack Obama, same suits. I mean, they weren't doing this for fashion. They were minimizing decision fatigue. So you don't have to wear the exact same thing every day, by the way. But you should create a minimal, interchangeable, personal uniform for your most common scenarios. That is why I turn up in these t-shirts all the time. It is my way of eliminating decision fatigue, or you can call it lazy, however you want to. But 3 interchangeable outfits could be enough. You don't have to think about it, just grab and go. Decide on a rotation of 5 simple healthy meals you will eat for lunch every week. Pre-prep them on Sunday, decision eliminated. Dedicate time slots for grocery shopping, laundry and cleaning. It's not when I get around to it, it's Saturday 9 a.m. like clockwork. This again can be confused of being robotic, but it's about making your life predictable in some areas so your brain can relax. And when you have that little control, anxiety relieves itself and stress becomes less apparent and frees up our resources for other creative problem solving and just enjoying your life. And the final aspect, the final technique is radical acceptance of the messy drawer philosophy. This final technique requires radical honesty. Most people are stressed because they are trying to maintain a standard of perfection that requires constant, exhausting effort. So let's talk about this messy drawer philosophy. Every house, including yours, has that 1 or 2 or room with junk in it. Is full of random items of clothing, random cards, random batteries, ancient takeouts, some clips, maybe single chopstick. You know what I'm talking about. It's a mess from a different vantage point, but it causes you no stress whatsoever. Why? Because you have radically accepted that it is messy and you don't expect anything else from it. So now think about some other area of your life, your digital life or your fitness or your financial life. You're stressed about your budget because you expect every category to be perfectly tracked. You stress about your photos because you expect every single one to be perfectly organized into folders. Now here's the trick. Deliberately designate a few areas of your life as your junk drawers and grant them absolute freedom from judgment. Create a folder on your computer called To File eventually and dump every random thing, everything on your screen, every random download, screenshot, attachment into it. Never open it unless you need something specific. The goal is to get the file off your immediate workspace so you have access to the mess and eliminating the stress of tidying up. And in terms of financial junk drawer, designate one bank account or credit card for all your impulsive purchases, fun purchases, non-budget spending. You never have to track that individual transaction in that account as long as the balance remains clear. And you accept that messy data, then you no longer have to worry about it, or stress will no longer get you. So this is another trick. Again, by consciously choosing to accept the imperfections in minor areas, you create pockets of peace. You stop fighting the natural entropy of life and you channel your limited organizational effort towards the things that matter. Like your tax documents, for example, or making sure the kitchen isn't actually attracting raccoons. Good enough is often better than perfect because perfect always comes with a really high invisible invoice for stress. Now, let's just quickly recap these 6 unconventional stress busting techniques we covered today. None of these required a yoga mat, a smoothie, or a 7-hour deep sleep. Maybe you fell asleep watching this, but that's good news. But number 1, we dodged the second arrow. When pain hits, stop the mental narrative. The event is outside your control. The suffering is your choice. Just name the event and stop. Number 2, embrace the C minus life. This is music to my ears. I should have heard this when I was in school. Set the bar so low for non-critical tasks. So, example, wipe one counter, write one bad sentence, whatever it is that you need your attention to, you can spend A+ on that. 3, the social media safari. Switch from comparing to observing. View perfect online lives as exotic, irrelevant, anthropological specimens of humans. 4, budgeting energy principle. Using the elegant no to protect your own time like a CFO protects cash flow. Your time is finite and valuable. Number 5, the uniform principle. Eliminate decision fatigue by standardizing some of the aspects in your life, your clothes, your meals, your routine tasks, and even your gym workouts. Save your brain power for the big leagues, the big ideas. The messy drawer philosophy. Radically accept imperfections in designated areas like your desktop, small expense account. Stop fighting entropy and reduce this low-grade anxiety. So, what are my final thoughts on stress-free living, or is stress helpful? Living a truly stress-free life isn't about eliminating all the problems. It's about reducing or eliminating friction. Think about life right now. Where is the friction? Is the fear of starting a project, C- principle? Is it the guilt of having too many obligations? Elegant no. Is the exhaustion of making 50 pointless decisions before 9 a.m.? The uniform principle. Stress is often just friction between your expectations of effortlessness and the reality of life's demands. And the best way to reduce friction isn't to push harder, is to apply this cognitive grease. These techniques are mental lubrication. They can get you through the day without feeling like you're constantly wading through thick, sticky, emotional mud. So, I challenge you this week to pick just one of these unconventional hacks. Don't try to implement all 6 at once. That would be, again, setting the bar too high. Start with the C- principle for one task that you've been dwelling on. Set the goal to the absolute minimum viable effort. See how the stress instantly evaporates. If you have not been to the gym and you've been thinking about going to exercise, just go and lift one thing off the floor. It's literally that simple. Or go and say hello to someone. Or just go and get that coffee you need. I'd love to hear which of these hacks resonates with you most. Was it the messy drawer philosophy, or are you ready to deploy the elegant no? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And that brings us to the end of this substantial stress reducing episode from Daily Practice. We've covered some defenses, social boundaries, tactical logistics needed to reclaim your life. And if you enjoyed this slightly deeper dive, please hit like, subscribe so you don't miss our next episode, and share this with that one friend who needs to stop apologizing for saying no. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Remember, dodge the second arrow, and we'll catch you next time.